I'm Scott Allen Miller. It is the 20th of June, 2023. This is my vlog of daily life living in León, Nicaragua. Today, we're going to be showing a little bit of the LiberArte concert that went on today to celebrate the 44th anniversary of the liberation of the city of León. And we're going to talk a little bit about our upcoming schedule because we got a lot of stuff coming up this week that I think is coming out. We're going to talk a little bit about power outages because it's very prescient with stuff that's going on in the United States. And we're going to get to all of that right after the bump.
Talk to me nice, talk to me honestly. Look in my eyes, don't let it fall on me. Say you're a good guy, make me believe it. Don't wanna hear it, I wanna see it.
The sky may seem clear, but I've got rolling thunder in the background, so I'm assuming I've got a storm coming. I was going to go out and do a Barrio Walk today to add to the footage that we're doing of the LiberArte concert, but if you see my shorts, I went out and was planning, that is my YouTube shorts. When I say that, by the way, no one's looking at my shorts. When we go out, I was heading out the door to go record, and we got a downpour that went the late morning, and I had stuff going on this afternoon, so I didn't manage to go out and do a Barrio Walk. Hopefully we'll do that tomorrow. But I have been out doing Barrio Walks. I've already done two so far in the barrio or reparto, I still don't know, of Fundesi, which is in southeast León, and I think it's going to be some really interesting material for you guys. It's within an area that we've recorded on either side of in the past, but I'm trying to cover a bunch more stuff, and it is a zone that I think will be very surprising what it's like compared to the ones on either side, which, for your reference, are Colonia Universidad, which we've done a few episodes on maybe a month ago, and then a bit in Guadalupe we've recorded, that was like a year ago, and we have never done Fundesi in between the two. You've seen it sometimes as the camera passed by in certain spots where we've like filmed in those other locations, but we've never actually been to Fundesi, and it is a completely different part of the city than anything else I've shown. So I think that will be interesting to see how that nestles in and what's there. So looking forward to getting that out to you pretty soon. We've already filmed a few houses that we want to show in the upcoming days. I have filmed a hostel that is for sale. That's going to be coming up in about a week, so don't be looking at that right away. But this is one that is for sale. We have a price, an asking price on it. We have a bit of information. We're actually the coordinators for this one. So it's a special case. You can't ask us for our reference as far as like what we think it's worth or anything, because it's owned by a family of multiple friends of ours. So we're getting the word out, we're showing it, but any negotiations or whatever is not one that we can be involved in, but we'll definitely let you guys know about it. It's very interesting. We're going to be showing the city of Alsauce coming up this week, which is a beautiful small town in the north of Departamento León. So we've got a bit of content going on. Plus, and this one's very different, and I had a lot of fun doing this, we just recorded an episode at the León skate park, which this is really cool. Nicaragua has been putting in skate parks just like you have in the United States and other places. It's relatively new here. These aren't things that we've had for a long time. We showed one briefly on our episode about Jinotega about a month ago, and there is a new one that has gone into León. Liesl and I went a year ago and filmed at the skate park before they started construction, and so I'll try at some point when we talk about the skate park, I'll try to link that so you can see what it was like before. But since it went in as a skate park, we haven't had a chance to get down there and film it. It is, I believe, in Guadalupe. But it is a beautiful skate park, not very big, but it is really nice, much bigger than the one in Jinotega, however, and they had a skate competition there, and I went out with the good camera and actually filmed it, and I think we got some neat footage. I'm looking forward to bringing that to you guys as well. I should mention, because I don't say this very often, if you're interested in seeing the photography that goes along with this show and other things that I'm working on, please go check out my Flickr feed, which, this is hard to remember, but it's flickr.com/sheepguardingllama. But if you check that out, I have about, at this time, 45,000 images there, whether you're interested in photography or Nicaragua or my life history, whatever. There's a lot of interesting stuff there. I do a lot of photography. I was a professional photographer for a while and have always been a pretty serious hobbyist, so there's a lot there. Wow, that's a lot to go over about our content and stuff. And of course, I need to mention, if you haven't checked out Drive Warp, check that out. If you coughing dog. If you have not seen Nicaragua 360, please check that out. Those are our sister channels. They have a lot of similar and related content to here, but in a completely different vein. So some of you will love it, some of you will be completely disinterested, but feel free to check it out. Definitely helps support me by going to those. But most importantly, some things that we've gone to, specifically the Parade of the Higgens, for example, that is one where you can go and see the entire parade. It's about 75 minutes long in full 360. So you can move the camera around and see everyone marching in the parade, see the route, see the side streets, see the people watching on the second floor, and we're doing it like it feels like a drone, basically. So it's really interesting, and I think that one especially is worth checking out, but you really got to sit down and put some time into it. But like when we went and did the hotbeds for the volcanoes, we took the 360 cam and you get a view from above, so you can really kind of feel like you're there and experience it a little bit in a way you can't on my show. My show is very curated, right? Here's the view I'm giving you, and obviously I just walk around a lot of the time when I'm doing Barrio Walks, and you see what I see for the most part. But if there's something going on behind me or to a side street, like, you're not going to see that. You only see where I'm pointing the camera. And with the 360, you're seeing absolutely everything. So it's kind of like standing there, which is really neat. And so I really like that we get to bring that content to you as well. Now, today we're going to talk a little bit about power. We've got an episode coming up in which we're going to talk in length again about the power here and comparing it to the US, but there's a very specific aspect of the power infrastructure here that I want to make sure people are aware of. Actually, there are two aspects. The first is I want to define what I mean when I say that we generally only have brief outages here. In Nicaragua, and I'm very adamant about this, we tend to only have brief power outages. What do I mean by brief? By brief, I mean you can generally mitigate anything you need to by simply having batteries. You don't need to go to generator, you don't need to go stay in a hotel, you don't need to do anything special as long as you're maintaining basic good appliance protections. Some things that we do to make sure that things work, for example, is we have a few UPS units on things like our televisions and our internet access and so forth, and we have a really big battery that we use for our key internet. Beyond that, we have laptops that have battery lives of about 10 hours, right? So for example, I have a MacBook Air. Because of those things, we are able to ride out multiple hours of of power outage without it being noticeable at all. And this is important because there's certain things we don't need here. That's going to be the second aspect that we're going to talk about. But that's what I'm referring to, that these are non-impactful outages. Of course, the lights go out, that's annoying. Maybe you can't watch TV, that's annoying, but they're minor annoyances. They aren't the things that make you pack up and leave. They aren't the things that make your food go bad in the refrigerator. It is extremely minor. A non-brief outage, an impactful outage, means you're having to go buy ice and figure out how to keep your food from going bad. It means you're not able to work because your internet's out or your power's out for so long that your internet fails. Either your equipment in the house or the equipment for the internet providers start to fail. Those are impactful outages. Also, impactful outages are more likely to happen if you have a large area impacted. In Nicaragua, quite often we have brief outages that are not impactful because we can also just go to the local cafe and keep working. It's rare that our outages span the entire city or department, let alone going to neighboring cities. For example, as I record this, the city of Chinandega is without power, but Leon is with power. So those people who are in Chinandega, should they actually have some kind of emergency where they absolutely have to work, they have to charge things, they can simply take the bus to Leon and work from here, for example. And while that is pretty inconvenient, it is very different than having a complete regional outage. It is rare that you can't travel 30 minutes or less and have power. And of course, a lot of places here have generators like us at our restaurant. So a lot of people go not to our restaurant necessarily, but lots of restaurants and hotels have generators so that they can ride out longer outages when necessary. We actually maintain multiple generators and giant tanks of fuel so that we can go for days at a time on continuous generator and not have to worry about refueling or anything like that. That provides a lot of comfort, even though we've never had to do that. So very, very easy in general to mitigate something that goes beyond a non-impactful outage if you need to. And I'm going to go into this a bit in depth on my second episode in Fundesi, so it'll be almost a week before that comes out, I anticipate. I'm going to talk about this a bit, but I wanted to provide some of this foundational information about what I mean by a brief outage and define it, because there's some people on the channel trying to claim that Nicaragua has these big outages and going through my channel and showing obviously brief outages that are non-impactful and trying to say that, oh, look, you can see it's such a big deal. One of the ways that I mitigate power being out, because I can't I can generally, if the outage is short, and the majority of our outages are just a few minutes, right? And please don't go and say, look, there's an outage a year ago that was 2 hours long. It's not always 5 minutes. I didn't say it was always 5 minutes. I said it's generally 5 minutes or less. It's generally under 30 seconds, right? We have an outage more than once a week of under a minute. We have an outage a few times a month of a couple minutes. Those things are true. And in the United States, that is rare. Canada, that is rare. But if you have batteries, you don't even notice, right? You hear a beep. Oh, did the power go out? By the time you've gone to look at it, oh, the light came back on. So that's really brief. But when we have them for just a couple hours, yes, you got to have UPSs. Yes, you got to plan a little bit. But with just a little bit of planning, and that's one of the great things about Nicaragua, is that, yes, they've shifted some of that responsibility onto you in your home. But because they've done that, because everyone does it, because life is cheaper, it's really cheap to invest a little bit in a few batteries if that's something you need, and ride out the outages. You don't need a generator in most cases. You don't need any big thing. Just run off some battery, and you don't need to worry about fuel. You don't have to worry about planning. Have some laptops, right? Most people do. They work off laptops or iPads and things like that you don't need to worry about long-term power. You just need to keep your router on if you want to maintain internet from your Wi-Fi. If you just want to go to your LTE on your cell phone, you don't even need to worry about that. All you need is enough battery to keep your cell phone charged. For the majority of people, very few of the people who are living here are like me and need to work from a desktop and have multiple screens and multiple computers and tons of internet and be uploading and compressing lots of videos all day long. For me, any type of outage is really impactful compared to normal people, and it's barely impactful for me, and certainly not as impactful as it has been in the United States, or would be for me in the United States right now, but we're going to talk about that in the upcoming video. So that's the first piece, what I mean by brief. The second piece is it's really important to consider how much of a need you have for power. How important is power? When you live in the United States, pretty typically your power is something you're absolutely dependent on. Here in Nicaragua, power tends to be something we are not dependent on. When the power goes out, for me, it's different. I run a home office and I do nonstop video editing, upload, download. I do things on a bandwidth level that I cannot go to LTE to mitigate. I have to use multiple internet providers. I have to have all kinds of equipment. I'm running desktops and multiple monitors. Those things make me use a lot more power and dependent on it. And notice, but I often mitigate a smaller outage, which is just a little bit, things that are not going to cause our food to thaw, things. I just go out for a walk. I just shift when I'm going to film and do it then, and it basically makes my outage go away completely. Yes, I acknowledge it, I talk about it on the channel, and I want you guys to be aware. I want it to be exposed that we have an outage. This is how I'm handling it. This is how impactful it's been for us, so that you know you can make those evaluations for yourself based on that actual information. And it's funny, because pulling up me saying how non-impactful the issue is and what I did to mitigate it, they're like, look how bad it is. I'm like, okay, I'm the one who just told you how bad it is. So one of the things, though, that people really tend to miss is that we don't need air conditioning and fans and things like that here. We don't get that hot. And you're going to say, Scott, it's hot in Nicaragua. What are you talking about? It is hot. It is a very warm place, but it is not a hot, hot place. It is a consistently extremely warm place. And it's important to understand the difference between very, very warm and actually really hot. When you're in really hot places, like much of the southern US and even New York at times, it gets so hot that it can be life-threatening. You have to have air conditioning, or at very least, cold water and fans. You need some way to keep your temperature down. Here in Nicaragua, we never actually hit those temperatures. Now, if you're out jogging, you're doing manual labor, you're raising your body temperature to dangerous degrees, yes, you need a way to cool yourself down. But in most cases, you can just go take a shower or something, because remember, we have cold water showers, so that fixes that in many cases, if you have running water. So, which most people do in the cities, it's pressurized city water. Just go use that. But outside of that, we don't need to use AC and those things to keep ourselves cool. We may need them to keep ourselves comfortable. It is not the same thing. It is not for safety, it is for comfort. It is not a necessity, it is a luxury. And yes, when there's a power outage, you're going to give up some luxuries. There are certainly times we've had power outages that I really wish I had a fan. But that's about it. It is really minor. People understand during a power outage you might get a little bit sweaty. Not a big deal. No one is expiring because they can't perspire sufficiently. That's just not going to happen here. Our maximum temperatures, in theory, only approach 100 degrees, and that is really unheard of. High 90s, yes. Mid 90s, really common. Low 90s, almost every day. High 80s, for sure. It'll be so rare to go below the mid 80s during the hot part of the day. During the cold part of the day, it's normal to go that cold. And so it's within a temperature range where even people who are not conditioned to this weather are going to be okay. And people who live here and are conditioned to it, it is nothing. A really hot day here is only a minor inconvenience. And businesses here don't go to shorts and stuff when it's a super hot day. The hottest days, they're still in jeans. So it's all about perspective. In the United States, when it gets hot, it gets deathly hot, and there's no way around having air conditioning or whatever. It's necessary, in many cases, not all, to keep people safe, to keep people functional. So the need for the power is very different. Also, our cooking here is done by gas, not by electric. It's not 100% true, but it's like 99% true. I have never seen a place that cooks with electric or depends on it. They may use it from time to time. Everything is done with gas. So because of those things, when the power's out, if the power was out right now, I wouldn't even notice. I'm standing outside in a beautiful day. I'm not using a fan or air conditioning. My house is wide open. Even when I'm in the house, I'm not running air conditioning. My dogs are outside. Any cooking that's going on, which cooking is going on right now, the lights are off and we have power, but no power is really being used. Of course, our internet's on. I may be charging a device or two, something like that. But it's all things that if the power went out, I wouldn't even notice other than the beeping of my UPS units. And that's actually really important for me to mention. The majority of outages that we have, I'm only aware that they've happened because I have alerting built in and it sets off an alarm the instant the power goes off, and I get beeps all over the house. In most cases, I hear the beep and never actually notice the power go out myself. I only know it because of the beep. I look and say, no, it's already back on. That's the majority of the outages. Now, the fact that we have lots of those outages does not make it that we necessarily have more or less big ones. We don't have a lot of big ones that actually go to the point where you need to deal with your refrigerator, where you're worried about safety, where you don't know how you're going to work, whatever is the exception, not the rule. It is a very long time between those types of outages, and even when they occur, it is very rare that they happen over a large area. We're going to go into more in-depth upcoming Fundesi episode, but I wanted to address some of that because there's this ongoing discussion on the channel trying to say that a few hours that really isn't impactful and can ride out on batteries isn't brief. And of course, everyone has their own definition of brief, so I'm providing mine. So when I say these are non-impactful brief outages, that is what I mean. And you can go scour my show all you want and look at all the outages we've had and see how many times we've been actually impacted in some meaningful way. Sometimes for convenience, we run to the beach where there's generators, or we go to someone's house where there's power, we charge a few things. Sometimes we didn't charge adequately before, sometimes we forgot to put things on battery. That stuff happens. And in general, it's been really, really minor. And also we have kids who want to do things and they get really bored without power. Sometimes we do things just because they're bored. And that's rough. You don't want to go through that, but it's still a relatively non-impactful outage. Okay, now today's actual topic, we're going to talk about the going out culture and the live music and the events going on with live music here in Nicaragua, because it's really exciting, and we're going to show a little bit of LiberArte. Living in Nicaragua, I talk about all the time. It's about going out. It's about doing things outside. It's about getting out with people. It's super, super social. Events are the name of the day, in the name of the game. In the United States, where I'm from, like wherever I've been from, yeah, there's always been live music, but it's always a rarity. If we're going out to see a band, it's like, oh, cool, you're going out to see a band. I haven't done that in ages. Everyone says that every time. My cousin goes out and sees bands all the time. She is certainly the exception, not the rule. You can, if that's your thing, do that on a regular basis. But in general, even friends I had who were in bands, they only went out every so often, and we would only see them every so often. Like the whole culture of going out to see live music is, yeah, it's a cool, fun thing that we all enjoy, but we don't do it that often. And when we do, there's a certain percentage of the time that we do that is really big concerts. We're talking $100, $200 a ticket, huge stadiums, things like that. Here in Nicaragua, we do live music all the time. It is built into our everyday lives. Live music is just the fabric of existence here, and it's fantastic. Because there's live music all the time, everybody does it and just builds it into their activities. So one of the things to just plan for. Now, of course, you can avoid it if you don't like live music. You don't have to go see it. My kids actually generally don't, so they don't go to those events. Liesl went to one and was like, this is interesting, but I don't want to do it again, right? Too loud. I carry earplugs with me most of the time so that I'm ready, because sometimes it's just way too loud. I've gotten used to the volume a little bit, and that's one of the things that has happened here. And I'd advise against getting used to the volume as much as you can, just for your own sanity. It is important to protect your hearing, so be aware. Earplugs, and it's really hard to buy earplugs here. That's something we buy in the States and ship in giant amounts. So think about that. They're also super cheap, and you can fit a bazillion in your luggage without, they fit in little crevices, right? We buy them by huge bulk on Amazon, super cheap, solves so many problems. Get earplugs. That is my recommendation of the day. Blah! Okay. So live music though is so a thing here, but it's not giant concerts in most cases. Even pretty big bands in the country don't tend to play giant concerts. The population just isn't dense enough in any particular place to warrant that. What ends up happening is fair-sized bands mostly play in Managua, but travel around the country and play in different places, and they get good-sized crowds. They're always getting someone to come out, but mostly it's a much more intimate experience in Nicaragua than it is in the US, simply by the nature of how the population is laid out and the size of the country and so forth. But being ready for that is just part of everything. So when you're going out to dinner, think about, do you want to see music? Do you want it to be live? Do you want it to be a DJ? Live music and DJs are just everywhere. It's fantastic. Tonight is the last of the week-long celebration of things going on here for the city of León for its 44th anniversary of its liberation. In 1979, on June 20th, it was, I believe, the first of the cities liberated as the dictator forces were forced out of the country. The Somoza fled on June 19th, but the cities were still not completely free, because that was, like, I guess, at night. And then León was liberated in the morning of the 20th, and so they celebrate on the 20th. So the national thing is like the 19th. Everyone says the 19th because it's like when the country was free. But on the 20th is when León considers itself to have been free. And so the events, and someone's going to write in with a lot more information. That was very generic and probably slightly wrong, but the dates are pretty solid. But that's what this celebration is. So the week has been leading up to this, and tonight we do this big celebration of the freedom of León, and the band LiberArte, or it's kind of like a performance group, LiberArte, is performing in León. They have a big stage set up, and I shouldn't be surprised, but I keep being surprised. You would not get these kinds of turnouts in the United States for this type of event, this small town or small city community event in the city square. Of course, people would turn out for that stuff in the United States, but it would be a small number of people. This was massive crowds packed in, again, to the same place that the National Ballet was the other night. This is a bandstand right in the Plaza Mayor, in the general sense, the Central Park, right in front of the cathedral, the Basilica, and there, people are up on the steps of the Basilica, and the crowd is the whole square is full, and they've got the music pumping, and it's amazing. It was a great performance. I wouldn't say it's as good as the National Ballet. That was mind-blowing how good of a job they did. I wish that the video I had was way better, but they did do a great job. The music was good. The crowd was pumped up. People were jumping up and dancing and like really passionate about the whole event. It was a lot of fun, because partially because the band was great, like for sure, but it was more fun because the crowd was so into it. The energy of the place was intense, which is true for a bunch of reasons. One, live music gets Nicaraguans excited. So having live music and a big band and a big performance alone is a big event, and people love to go out for that. So that was kind of why I set the stage. See the pun? See what I did there? But this was, between it being the end of a week-long set of events, because it was the celebration of their city, because it was this huge performance band from Managua, because it was live music in Central Park, because it's a free event, people were just having so much fun and so excited to be there. And so, like, you can see in my videos, and I'll do my best, I posted some of this live, right? So if you haven't seen, go to the live tab on my page, and you'll see about 15-16 minutes at the end of the concert where I just held up my iPhone and got some shots, and we had quite a few people on the stream. That was fantastic. Thanks for joining live. I know I can't give warning on a lot of those things, and I didn't know it was going to work or not. That was Tigo streaming out of the square, right? I didn't have Wi-Fi or anything, so that was on the cell phone network and worked pretty well. but it was just so cool. So something that's interesting, because people ask me about this as well. Going to these things with a lot of crowds, like you gotta be careful with your wallet, your phone. You don't wanna, you really wanna keep yourself safe. Look, here's the reality. I was in a couple thousand people at a concert in the middle of the city, and a free concert with no security. I mean, there was security, but it wasn't like you were in an area and couldn't leave. Anyone could just wander in and wander out. So if someone was to pick your pocket, they could just walk away. The reality is I had my pockets full of money, and I had a cell phone, not a ton of money. I'm not inviting people to come find $1 million on me, but I probably had $20, $30, $40 in my pockets. I had my cell phone in my pocket. I had my GoPro with me. I had a tripod for it. So I was busy, I was trying to film, and I did some filming holding the GoPro, but at some point I said, you know what, I wanna get some footage and I can't be at the place that I wanna be. I walked up with the GoPro and sat it directly in front of the stage and was separated by a lot of people from my camera a bit of the time. And really, I felt quite confident leaving my GoPro unattended at a concert of thousands of people in the public Central Park of Leon. Think about that for a minute. That, I think, is a pretty big statement, both that I'm still recording on that GoPro and that I was willing to do that. And if you watch my live stream, I turn around a number of times. There was a lot of time that GoPro was out of my sight. So if it disappeared, I wouldn't even know. I would, but not right away. And I was holding an iPhone, like the opportunity to grab something out of my hands, the opportunity to pick my pockets, the opportunity to grab my GoPro and run were there. And I wasn't worried about it, and nothing happened. This was one of the most likely scenarios to have someone grab something and run that I can imagine within reason and no worries at all. In fact, people were incredibly respectful of the camera. At one point, someone did have to move it because they were trying to film something else, so they just carefully moved it to the side, but people were watching out for it. People were dancing right next to it and trying not to hit it. Like, it was, people were really taking care of each other. It was a really great experience. So the concert was so much fun. And I'm gonna cut it in and out so you guys can see little bits of it. A lot of it's music that I can't necessarily play. We're gonna get dinged by YouTube on playing copyrighted music. So I want you to get a feel for it, but I can't show very much. But it was really, really cool. The whole thing was fun. I was, to the best of my knowledge, of course, it's easy to miss people, the only foreigner who was there for this event. This is such a thing that people don't go out for. And seriously, feel free to go out for most of these events like this. Just because it's a thing for Nicaraguans, just because it's things for the Leonese, does not mean you're not invited, does not mean that you're not going to be welcomed. And people were legitimately happy that I was there. They were, if you watch them on camera, especially when they see the camera, they're dancing for me, they're waving and smiling. People were inviting me to things and like really interacting and just vivacious and having so much fun, and so glad that I took the time to attend. As an obvious foreigner, it was truly a great event, and I had a lot of fun. So I will be doing that again next year as well. Hopefully able to live stream. I'm going to do a lot to like prepare to do better live streaming next year as well. The people who do live streaming here, they all do vertical, so it's like live streaming to like TikTok. I'm going to do my best to set up and really be prepared to do full horizontal 4K live streaming. I guess it's 1080p no matter what I do, but full HD horizontal, so you can watch it on TV and get a completely different experience. I know some of you watch the live on your phones, but most of you watch them recorded after the fact, and then you're much more likely to watch them on TV, and you can have that experience like the rest of my show, except for the shorts, obviously. But that is my plan. So I need to come up with a little bit of a rig for that, but not a big deal. And well within my plans. So that was my day. I did that and then quickly grabbed, of course, Hugoso smoothies before I left the square. You can't go to the square and not get a smoothie because they're so delicious. And it was a good day with a good event. I now have a few days off from those events. I have a lot of other filming, like I talked about, that need to get done. So it's a busy week. Thanks for joining me. Please remember to like and subscribe. If you have any questions, get down there in the comments. Ask them right away. We get a lot of good comments down there. A few not so good, but very few, really. We get great comments, even if you're just saying hi or whatever. Get down there. And if you would like to support the channel, you can buy me a coffee at the link above, buymeacoffee.com/Scott Allen Miller. That makes all of this possible. It makes me able to afford all the cameras and stuff that you see here. There's actually an announcement coming out from Insta360 about a new camera on the upcoming Tuesday. So on the day that you see this, they will actually have made the announcement. So at the time I'm recording this, I have no idea what this new camera is. I have a pretty good idea. I'm not going to venture a guess publicly, but by the time this goes live, I will be watching the Insta360 live stream because I'm an insider because I own an Insta360, and finding out what the new camera is. Might be trying to get that on the shipment we have coming in from the US soon. So, but things like that, it's buying me a coffee that makes it possible to get all that new types of footage, whether it's the GoPro or the 360 stuff or the upcoming skate park stuff. You're gonna see completely different types of footage. That requires equipment for me to do, and you guys make that possible. So thank you very much to everyone who has contributed, and we get just regular, like it just flows in and it makes such a huge difference. We're definitely not at a point where the channel makes money. It's pretty much paying for its own equipment at this point, but this is not a job in any way. I have to work a full-time job to pay the bills, and this is just starting to not lose me so much money. It takes a lot of time to make this show, so I really, really do truly appreciate everyone who helps make it possible. And if you are looking for help with relocation, anything from a conversation to actually looking for a house to someone to go shopping with you and hold your hand and take you through the whole process of moving to the country, to even finding someone to do legal residency processes, all of that, shoot us an email, info@relocatenicaragua.com. We'd love to talk to you and help find the resources that you need. And of course, like, subscribe, tell your friends, post on social media, and I will see all of you mañana.